Hey guys, Paul here with Late Night Games. It is Thursday, April 25th. Actually the 25th, not the wrong date this time, which is the 25th day of the VEDA challenge. We've got 5 more days, if this month has 30 days, which I'm pretty sure it does. Anyways, let's get on with it. So, first off, for you guys who watched yesterday, I was a little ridiculous. A little more than what I was anticipating, but the worst actually came after the eating of the food. What ended up happening was about an hour or so after, when I finished uploading and everything, I'd washed my hands several times, but I guess there still must have been some of the oily residue, because I had something caught in my eye. I went to go rub my eye, and when I did, suddenly my eye started burning like you would not believe. So for anyone who eats really hot wings, don't then shove said wing sauce into your eyes. It hurts. Just so you know. Now, what I wanted to talk about today, just something random to discuss. It was another idea given to us by Liam Gray, the person who gave us some of our ideas from last week. And that idea is to talk about not what career I have, but what did I, when I was younger, picture myself growing up to be. Now, the first thing I can remember picturing myself growing up to be was a paleontologist. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with dinosaurs. And just at that peak of that obsession is when the first Jurassic Park movie came out, which just threw it up into overdrive. I mean, really, back then, what kids weren't obsessed with dinosaurs, and what kids didn't want to go digging up their bones or want to use DNA research to bring dinosaurs back to life? Now, the second I know is not quite possible. However, it is something that kids always dreamed about, and it is something I wanted to do. I wanted to be involved with dinosaurs. Now, dinosaurs still to this day, what's the word for it? Fascinate me to no end. I mean, we wouldn't know that these creatures even existed at all if we didn't find their bones, and only through their bones have we managed to piece together their existence. I remember reading way back when I was younger, so my facts could be way off, because I think I was 10 when I was reading this, that the Brachiosaurus we used to call a Brontosaurus, and the old Brontosaurus was a misconceived skeleton that had extra bones in the wrong place, or missing bones, or something along those lines, where basically we got the skeleton wrong because it was never complete. So we thought a dinosaur existed that really didn't. And we have no idea what the texture of their skin was. Some people say they were more bird-like, other people say they were more lizard-like, but they're just amazing creatures, and it's really fascinating, and as a kid, it's something I wanted to grow up doing. Now, soon after that, however, ever since I was at a young age, I used to fly at least twice a year. When I was a kid, about 7 or 8, I started going and visiting my grandmother who lived back home in Cape Breton, which is where I'm from. I've mentioned that, I think, once or twice already. So I'd fly back and forth every year, usually with someone. I would either go with a family member or a friend of the family who was also going to Cape Breton at the same time, so my grandmother would book the tickets at the same time as someone else. That way I wasn't flying alone. By the time I was 11, I started actually flying alone for the first times. Now, I always loved flying. I always loved planes. But I didn't actually think of flying to be a career choice until I was probably 11 or 12. It was about the time that I started phasing out of the desire to be a paleontologist and into the desire of wanting to be a pilot. And that was then my dream job. I was going to be a pilot. No matter what happened, I was going to fly. And I got into air cadets, and I used to go in gliders and stuff with air cadets, and I served there for, I think, like 2 years I was in the air cadets. And it was a great 2 years. I loved the structure. That drove me from instead wanting to be a pilot to wanting to be a military pilot. And I had every intention of joining the military as soon as I turned 18. But a couple things got in the way. As I said in my video of what I'm thankful for, I ended up having vision issues, which made it nigh impossible for me to join the military. Hello, garbage truck. Thank you for driving by in the middle of my recording. made it impossible for me to join the military at that point. Also, I couldn't swim, so passing basic training would have been kind of difficult because I can't tread water, I can't float. Or at least I couldn't back then, and I haven't tried much since. Then, the career I ended up taking wasn't one I actually thought of as a child taking. As a kid, I loved using computers. I started using computers when I was like 4 years old at a friend's house. Maybe 5. Between 4 and 5 was when I first started using computers. But it was mostly at a friend's house. And it was mostly just playing games like Math Rabbit and Reader Rabbit and the old Sierra King's Quest game. But it got to the point where I was just typing in what I knew I had to type in to play the game. I knew I had to type dir to find the name of the file that had .exe or .com at the end, and then that's what I had to type to start the game. I didn't know what dir stood for at the time, nor did I know why I had to look for the com or the exe, just that the com and the exe were the game. Granted, I was 6, and I was using DOS. Shortly thereafter, though, I got a book on MS-DOS, which I think I still have lying around somewhere, and I taught myself how to use a computer properly. I didn't end up actually starting to use Windows until almost, probably near the end of elementary school, coming into the beginning of high school, did I start playing with Windows. I grew up on DOS, so I loved computers growing up, but I never thought of a job in them, which is what I end up doing now. For those of you who don't know, I work with computers for a living. I'm not going to go into the details of what I do, but I do a lot of technical mumbo-jumbo on computers. I make computers do what they do and make them do it well. I also fix things that people break. That being said, even when I was in high school, that wasn't my career choice. My career choice was pilot, and then when I realized I couldn't be a pilot, I just gave up on career choices. I worked construction for a few years, then I've worked in, then I got into the computer field, but I worked lower level jobs, slowly moving my way up. I mean, nothing screamed, this is going to be your career when I was in school. Like, when I was a kid growing up and in high school, I did not know I would be doing what I'm doing today. I'm glad I'm doing what I'm doing today, and I mean, going for the education, the training to get to where I'm going was great, but really, it wasn't my dream job as a kid. My dream job as a kid was to fly, and before that, it was to work with dinosaur bones and dig them up and go on grand adventures. I also always wanted to be a spy when I was in high school. Being a spy would be cool, but that was just because James Bond's awesome, and that was around the time that GoldenEye came out, was the beginning of high school. Not the movie, the game, which everyone loved, and yeah, that led to me wanting to be a spy. That wasn't as serious of a dream job, though, as flying or paleontology was. Now, if I were to go back, though, and do everything over, I think the field I'd want to get into nowadays is probably physics. Just because everything I know how to do with computers, everything I know how to do with cars, everything I know how to do with electronics, everything I learned while in martial arts, everything derived from the same commonality. I loved figuring out what made things tick, what made them work the way they are. With computers, I love learning how the computer runs, what goes on behind the scenes, why it does what it does, and how you can keep it doing what it does. With cars, same thing. I wanted to learn how the inside of the engine works, how all the parts work together, how all the electrical circuits are connected, and the relays and everything that is involved in the engine running and the car running and the sensors and the exhaust and whatnot. With martial arts, it was learning how my own body worked and how I could make it do what I wanted it to do and what the limitations were and the laws that abided by it. And as I sat and looked upon it, probably about a year ago, I sat and reflected on this. Everything I have had passion for, with the exception of flying is just because it's so freeing and it feels so wonderful. But with everything else that I've had a passion for learning about, it's been learning how something works. So to go one step beyond that to what my current knowledge passion is, learning how everything works. Because once you get down to the subatomic level, No matter if it's a car, a computer, a human body, or a hot air balloon, they all operate under the same laws at the subatomic level. The same forces are acting upon everything in the same ways. And learning about that base, how it works, is what's driving me currently, knowledge-wise. And most of the books I read then are in regards to physics and theoretical physics and quantum mechanics, just because that's what I find myself interested in right now. But yeah, that's what I was interested in growing up, what I thought would be my job, and what I'm doing now. So that's about all I have to say to you guys for today. Talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye now.